Welcome back to my channel, y'all. My name is Tierney, and this is gonna be episode 6 review slash recap of Black Lightning. It starts off in the police precinct, and Henderson is going to a meeting, and they're breaking off into groups, and I guess the sergeant or whoever's in charge is telling them where they're gonna be, and they're trying to catch Black Lightning. So they got a tip that he was in an alley. So we see Jefferson, he's lying on the ground right where Joey Toledo left him, and he's trying to get up, but he stands up and he falls right back down again. And there's two people passing by and they see him and they're like, hey, that's Black Lightning, but they just run away. They don't try to help him or anything. Gamby comes up in a van, he picks Jefferson up, puts him in the back of the van, and they ride off. And Jefferson is barely able to talk, but he tells Gamby that Tobias is back in Freeland. Gamby calls Lynn and he tells her that Jefferson is in the hurt locker, which I assume is a code phrase for he's hurt really bad, and she needs to come to the lab and basically stitch him up. Joey Toledo limps in to see Tobias and says he just got done fighting Black Lightning and he was about to finish him off and something was wrong with his head. And when he said he was about to finish him off, Tobias grabs him up by the neck and says, why didn't you finish him? And he says, I wasn't able to. He had trashed my gun and I was hurt. So he lets him down, and the girl that he's always with walks up to him and says that Tori's protection checked in. Joey asks him, oh, you have Tori under protection? And he says, yeah, because Lady Eve sent me some ground up albino bones. She's trying to scare me. Back at the station, Henderson tells the sergeant or whoever that Black Lightning got away, and he says that he got eyewitness reports that he was in a van and they drove away and they didn't get the number. The guy says, well, why didn't they get the number? And he says, sir, they were fans. It was selective amnesia. And he's like, well, how does a freak and a criminal have fans? And then Henderson asks him, well, where did you get that tip from? And he's like, I never told you where I got the tip from, because somebody named JT is calling him on his phone, which to me stands for Joey Toledo. And then he says, I got to take this. Back at the lab, in Gamby's shop, Lynn is examining Jefferson, trying to make sure everything's okay. And he says that he knows he should have waited, but Joey Toledo tried to kill him over and over again, and he couldn't miss the opportunity to go after him. And you know, he was Tobias's right-hand man. She says she took a brain scan while he was out and nothing looks out of the ordinary. You know, it wasn't a normal brain scan, but for him it's normal. She's touching his chest. He says, it's good to be back in your hands again, and that's when she goes off on him and she says, I don't want to be in this. You're dragging me back into it just like you did before. I hate stitching you up. And she just doesn't like the feeling that she gets whenever she has to, you know, make sure he's okay, do brain scans and all that kind of stuff. She says she doesn't like living in fear of somebody finding his body dead in the gutter somewhere. Jefferson goes back, of course, to Tobias murdering his father. He's like, look, Tobias murdered my father. Like, I'm not going to let that go, and I'm going to get this man. And she's like, I don't care. It's not going to bring your father back. He's dead. You basically need to get over it. And Jefferson's like, wow. She says he has no idea what it's like for her to see him like this. She just says it's too much. The next scene is Anessa at her school, and they're walking up to this Confederate statue, and it's about, I don't know, 12 other people. I don't know how many other people it is with her. She gives the signal, they pull out these water guns, and they start shooting the statue with red paint. The police come, they arrest them, a riot almost breaks out, and then it goes to Lynn in her lab. She's looking around, I think she yawns or something. Her assistant says, long night. She's like, no, I just couldn't sleep. And he brings to her attention some scans that look really weird. And he asks her, have you ever seen scans or anything like this before? And she says no. And then he tells her that it's the brain of somebody that was on green light. So then she asks him to go get her a coffee. So he walks away to go get the coffee, and she takes out Jefferson's scan and she puts it against the scan that he showed her, and they look very, very similar. And the guy, her assistant, is behind her, but she couldn't see, and he's on the phone and he's talking to somebody. So he's about to walk in, but when she pulls Jefferson's scan out and she looks at it, he makes a phone call. The assistant might be working for the 100. Jefferson and Jennifer are at the station and they came to pick up Anessa. When she comes out, he asks her, is everything okay? And she says, yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for coming to get me. And then Jennifer's like, you stay getting arrested. And when they walk out, this is when Jefferson goes in on her. He asks her if he should have her committed because she's lost her mind. And she says that statue was an insult to black people. And he says, you broke the law and you gave them a reason to hurt you. Jefferson tells her that you use guns, and she says they were just water guns, and he says they were enough to be the end of you. He says all it takes is for one cop to see your color and not your humanity, and they say to themselves, better dead than sorry. And he also tells her, you're a black woman, you don't have the luxury of being naive. And to me, that was a really good line that stuck out to me, so I wanted to make sure I quoted it back correctly. But all of these things are true. We see it in the news all the time. And then he tells her, I love you. I don't want to lose you because you went along with something that you should have walked away from. And I see his side and I also see her side. Then we see Anessa. She's in her room and she's doing research about having superpowers. And she says to herself, it's biologically possible to have superpowers. And she's recording it on her voice, on her phone, I believe. Jennifer comes in and asks her to check her pre-calc homework. She checks it right there for her and she sees that the homework is perfect. And then she gets on the bench. She asks Jennifer, is everything okay with you and Khalil? And she's like, yeah. And then she's like, no, it's everything's not okay right now. I just want to be a normal teenager, date, have a good time, go to prom, things like that. And with Khalil, I don't see that happening in my future. And Anessa tells her it's okay to be human. You have a choice to make. Back at the lab, Gambi instructs Jefferson to draw in energy, right hand, left hand. And, he's asking him how he feels. And then Jefferson says, I think sometimes Lynn is right about my powers being a drug. And Gambi tells him that endorphins are all that you're feeling. And then he asks him, are you feeling okay? And he says, yeah, I'm good. Did you find out what went wrong? When you're being Black Lightning, the only thing that's stopping your body from going crazy is the suit. And he says when the resistance is set too high, that can cause feedback. So the feedback is what's causing the headaches for Jefferson. So that's taken care of. Then Jefferson tells Gambi that Tobias is still in Freeland and he needs to go ahead and take him out. And Gambi says, well, hold on a minute, you need to wait. And at that point, Jefferson gets mad and he's like, you couldn't wait for me to get the suit on, but every time I mention Tobias, I get resistance. Why are you trying to basically protect him? And I'm glad that Jefferson checked him on that because we already know that Gambi is disloyal. And we don't know what he has on the side or what he has going on, but he is, I don't know if he's a friend or a foe at this point. I feel like, he's playing both sides. Gambi says, that's cold-blooded murder, what you're talking about, and a vengeful son is far from being a hero. Jefferson says that Freeland is in crisis because of green light, and if Toledo has anything to do with it, then Tobias has something to do with it as well. So I'm serving justice, or I'm bringing justice to Freeland by getting rid of Tobias. The last thing Gambi tells Jefferson is that the 100 had 9 years to get stronger, build relationships, blah, blah, blah. Jefferson says, I don't need a history lesson. I'm about to go take care of this. The next scene is Lynn. She's going into her lab and she sees that Gambi's already there. And she asks him, what does he want? Gambi says, that's kind of harsh, Lynn. And she says, well, you've never come by before and now you're breaking in. And he tells her that Jefferson is about to cross the line by killing Tobias and you need to get involved. And she says, you know what? The streets raised him. His father raised him to be Jefferson Pierce, but he was formed on the streets of Freeland. And he's a complicated person. The Olympics and all that stuff can't take what he was raised in out of him. Then Gambi says, when you kill someone, the best part of you dies. And at this point, he's trying to manipulate Lynn into telling Jefferson not to kill Tobias, the man that killed his father, and I don't like it. He also says, you may be the only person who can save him from himself. After that, then she tells him, you and Jeff decided to do this on your own and you need to leave me out of it and I have work to do. So then we have this scene where Jefferson is in his office and he's Googling medical issues for albinos, something to that effect, and a video comes up and says that Albinos have a lot of medical issues as far as their eyes are concerned and psoriasis, so regular checkups are necessary. So I believe this leads Jefferson to find Tobias's doctor. Then we see Jennifer and her grown friend, I don't know the friend's name, in the bathroom, and they're talking about a video that Lana posted saying that she can't dance or something like that. And the friend says, you need to be her again. And she says, you know what, that's a good idea. And they walk out. We see Anessa, she's going to the lab to tell her mom about the research that she has from her grandfather. And she asks about family dinners, and she says, I see you didn't show up to family dinner last night. Is everything okay between you and Dad? And Liz says, everything will be fine. And then Anissa says, one thing's for sure is that Dad's always been wide open for you, and, he's not going nowhere. And Lynn says, sometimes that's not enough. Then Anissa says, I know it's not meant to be. Her mother asks her what she means by that, and she says, when I was little, I used to hear you and Dad arguing all the time. And she said, I couldn't hear much. I just understood that you didn't like being the other woman. And then Lynn says, your father never cheated on me. Anissa says her dad is married to saving the world, and she says that she feels the same calling. And Lynn says, you don't know how right you are. And then she asks her what the box is, and she says, is this for me? And she's like, no. Anissa says, it's for me. It's a box of research. Inside is some work and a sample, but I can't make any sense of it, and I wanted to see if you can make any sense of it. And Lynn says, what is this referring to, or what is this about? And Anessa kind of looks away, and she's like, well, you need to tell me when the time is right, or whenever you can. And Anessa says, I will tell you when the time is right. Then we see Jefferson. He's going to Tobias's doctor's office. At first we don't know where he's going. Gamby looks at the feed, and he tells Jefferson that there's a difference between him and Tobias, and he needs to keep it that way. And Jefferson turns the feed off. And at this point, I'm right with them, because I don't want to hear anything that Gamby has to say. So he walks in the office. He finds Tobias's doctor, and he's like, do you know who I am? And the man says yes. He asks him, do you have a client named Tobias? And he tells him about how they meet. The only time that I can treat him is after hours. He'll call my secretary, and they threaten me to stay open, and he knows where my kids go to school. Basically, I'm under his thumb. Jefferson says, you're going to call him for an appointment. And the doctor says, no, he'll kill me. He'll kill all of us. And he's like, no, you're going to call him for an appointment. I'm going to help you. Do you want to be under his thumb forever? And he's like, he gives him a number for his Black Lightning phone. And he says, call me if you change your mind. Then we see Jefferson is back at school, and the vice principal comes and finds him. And she says that, I monitor all the bullying of Garfield High students. She shows him the post that Lana made, and he can see that Khalil commented under the post. Now, I'm not exactly sure what he said, but I'm sure that it hurt Jennifer's feelings, seeming as they're still together. In my mind, I'm not sure if they broke up or anything at this point. So he goes to find Jennifer. She's not in her class, and I think he finds her in the locker room or the workout room. He says that a cultural aftershock of slavery was if one person got ahead, another thought that it ruined their chances, so they tried to hold the other one back. And the mentality is called crabs in a barrel. And the whole post backfired on Lana. That's not what I'm concerned about. And he says, oh, you're concerned about the Khalil comments? And she says, yeah. Jefferson tells her it could be the pain talking, or this could be the person that he is when things don't go his way. And she asks him, well, how do I know who he is? And he says, well, you need to give him some space right now, and maybe in time, just be honest with yourself about what you're hearing. So she says, I need to see him. At the high school, in the teacher's lounge, we see footage on the news of a counter protest at the university when they defaced that statue with the red paint. White nationalists came out to protest, and they're chanting, you won't replace us. And then we get the news that a white nationalist drove his car into a crowd of people, and he killed a 19-year-old girl. And the vice principal says to Anissa, I wish we could do something to make this madness stop. And Anissa agrees with her. And then we go back to Khalil's house. Jennifer's there. She's visiting him. And Jennifer says, you've been avoiding me. When I text you, you don't text back. She says, maybe we should take a break. And he says, a break until when? I can walk again? And then he starts blaming her for what happened. If I was never at that march, then this wouldn't have happened to me. I did everything right. I followed the rules. I went to church. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. And God still took my legs. He tells Jennifer, you have everything and I have nothing. And then she says that she'll pray for him. And he says, keep your prayers and get out. So it's kind of crazy. Their relationship changed so fast. We saw them go from puppy love to they wanted to be with each other to now now Khalil can't stand her. So it's kind of crazy to see that all go down. The doctor decides to call Black Lightning, and he tells him that he called Tobias in for an appointment that night, and he asks him, will you be there? And the Black Lightning says, of course I will. While he was on the phone, they were still at Khalil's apartment. He was waiting for Jennifer to come out. When Jennifer comes out, she says, I should have waited and listened to you. And she just asks him, can we go home? Anissa goes to the memorial for the girl who passed away at the university statue. That's where they're having the memorial. And she has on her costume, and nobody really notices her. And she's looking around, and then she stomps so hard that the statue crumbles into pieces, and everybody kind of looks around like, oh my gosh, what happened? I think maybe a few people saw her, but she runs off after that. She gets in her car and she calls her mom, and she tells her mom that she's about to tell her mom, but her mom interrupts her. She says she was able to look at the research, but she's not exactly sure what it is yet, but she'll let her know when she has it. And then Anissa tells her, I need to show you why I need the research. So she's going to come by, and she says, well, yeah, just use the intercom when you come by. As soon as she gets off the phone with Anissa, Gambi calls her and says, Lynn, you have to get involved. He's about to kill a man. We see Black Lightning. He's on the roof, I assume of the doctor's office or somewhere close to there, and he's waiting for Tobias to pull up in the car. He has a flashback of Tobias and some other men in his house, and they have his father, and they're torturing his father, and they push newspaper down his throat, beat him. And Tobias says, oh, you want to write about me, Uncle Tom, and you need to eat your words. And so they push the newspaper down his throat, and it looks like either he falls out or he's dead. I'm not exactly sure. And Jefferson is hiding under the bed, and he remembers that memory like it was yesterday. He sees Tobias's car pull up, and he's about to strike when Gambi calls him and says, I'm putting you through to Lynn. Lynn starts off the conversation by giving him the birth dates of the girls and says, you're their anchor in this world, and you're a really good father, but you can't be a really good father if you let the air out of your soul and you kill someone, and that's exactly what will happen. Jefferson says it's already ruined. Basically, his soul is already shredded. Lynn says, I had a talk with Anissa, and I understand more of where you're coming from. And she also says that I was mad because I wasn't first in your life. She says, I accept who and what you are, and you're a hero, not a murderer. And then she hears something in the background. They all hear it in the background. Jefferson asks her, what's that? And she says, somebody's breaking in, and he tells her to hide. I'll be there in a minute. We see that Anissa gets to the scene first, and the men are tying up Lynn, and she tells them to get away from her. One of them shoots her several times. The bullets bounce off, and she knocks him out. And then the other one is standing there shaking with the gun in his hand, and she's like, you see, it didn't work. And so she knocks him out as well. Then she is about to untie her mother when Black Lightning shows up and says, get away from her. And he throws some electricity at her. She's able to stop it, and then a fight ensues. This is a really good fight too between them two. Eventually Black Lightning wins because he takes his electricity and pushes her up towards the ceiling and drops her down on the ground really hard. And then he comes up to see who it was, and he looks over and he's like, oh my gosh, Anissa. So he's shocked that she's out here doing whatever she's doing. He doesn't know how to feel, but I know he feels bad because obviously that's his daughter and he didn't want to hurt her. Gambi comes to pick them up in the van. Anissa's in the back in her mom's lap, and Jefferson asks Lynn what was she doing, and Lynn says she was doing what you do. She was being a hero. She was protecting me. And she starts crying, and then they hold hands. Gambi's listening to all of this information, At this point, I don't even like Gambi because I don't know what he got up his sleeve. We move to a scene of Khalil in the car with Tobias, and Tobias tells him, don't worry about anything, everything will be fine. And he says, you're either a sheep or a wolf in this life. And Khalil says, I don't know what I can do, I can't even walk. And he says, I promise you, you will. So then, this was the craziest moment of the episode to me. We see Gambi go talk to Lady E. Gambi now, he's supposed to be on our side. So when he comes in, Lady Eve says, how'd you get past my security? And he tells her, I taught you everything you know, not everything that I know. And then he says that the Pierce family is supposed to be off limits. And Lady E says they are. You know, she was doing some research that she shouldn't have been doing, and we just wanted the research. It had nothing to do with her. She wasn't supposed to be there. Then Lady E says, who was the metahuman that attacked the plumber crew? And she asks him, do you know anything about her? And he says, no, I don't know anything, which is true at this point because we just, you know, they just found out that she has her powers. And, you know, Lady E, I guess she feels threatened, and she says, I'll take out my own mother if I need to. You made me promises. And Gambi says, I've held up my part of the deal so far. And he says, I could have outed Tobias, but I didn't. And then Lady E says, if his dirty laundry comes out, then so does yours. So we already know that Gambi has secrets. You know, I felt some type of way about him in the last couple of episodes because he's been doing shady stuff. But it is what it is. Lynn and Jefferson are at home and they're waiting for Anissa to wake up. And Anissa slowly comes to and she looks at her mom, and then she looks over to see Jefferson in his Black Lightning outfit, and she says, Dad? And so that was crazy, you know, for her to wake up and see that her dad is Black Lightning and that's who she was fighting. A lot of stuff happened in this episode, y'all. If y'all have any comments, questions, or concerns, please leave them down below. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.